Hello, welcome to the Special Report, your news and views program about geek gaming culture on the internet. Coming up in the show today, Digital Homicide and their drama continues. This time they want to threaten legal action against Steam itself for the removal of their products off of the digital distribution network. We're going to talk about what this means possibly for Valve and Digital Homicide. You could probably guess, but there's a lot to get to. My name is JD Shadow and the Special Report will start now. Well, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Remember the last special report where I said something about Digital Homicide trying to sue 100 Steam users for the tune of $18 million, and now they are upping the amount they want from Jim Sterling from $10 million to $15 million. Well, it seems as though they weren't too happy with Valve taking the initiative and removing all of their products from the Steam library, because now they are threatening to sue Valve themselves. I kid you not, this is something that is actually being considered by Digital Homicide. In a blog post they posted onto their official blog, they actually have an official blog, I kid you not, they say they're seeking legal representation. Before I go any further, they do have court documents and there are some discrepancies in what they have as screenshots on the court documents and what they show in the blog. Here we go. It says on their official blog post, quote, "First, I'd like to briefly respond to Doug Lombardi's official statement about Digital Homicide and its owners. I'd like to give some context to his official statement. Valve has stopped doing business with Digital Homicide for being hostile to Steam customers. What has actually transpired was a lack of resolution from Steam in regards to moderation of their platform, which might sound like a tough job to do, but coming from a company that brags that profitability per employee is higher than Google, it just shows a reckless disregard for the well-being of their community for profit." I did not accidentally put an extra 4 in there. That's just how they wrote this. This was pretty lax on their grammar department, but we'll continue. "We submitted numerous reports and sent multiple emails in regards to individuals making personal attacks, harassment, and more on not only us but on other Steam customers who were actually interested in our products." Somebody was actually interested in your products? Okay. But anyway, the lawsuit that was submitted in regards to a handful of Steam users has been labeled by the media and now by Doug Lombardi's, a Valve representative, statement as being hostile to Steam users in general, which is incorrect. The lawsuit recently filed is solely in regard to individuals where no resolution was able to be obtained from Steam to provide a safe environment for us to conduct business. By removing us from defending ourselves against harassment, Steam is openly stating you cannot defend yourselves from examples like these. Now, here's what we're talking about here. They post a screenshot of a forum post, not a review, a forum post by a guy by the name of Brandito. Thank you for actually posting the name of the person who posted it. That way people could just go and harass the guy for saying it. It does say, quote, "I want to murder every single person responsible for this." And it has the link to the Digital Homicide store page. And the other one is sort of laced with profanity, and you could probably see that. I'm not going to repeat that. And the quote before that says, "Here is another user who was flagged and the moderator actually banned someone for disruptive behavior, but the original poster wants me to kill myself, mention my family, and has a moderation flag." Then there was another post that they say a comment from the same user who was reported and never taken care of that harassed ongoing. "You claimed you had a deal with people insulting you, saying you feel sorry for your kids for you having a father like you. You may never see why, but they are legitimately sorry they have to put up with someone like you." Now, anyone could probably see that those are pretty problematic, but let's get to the end of this whole thing before we go into where this kind of steers in a bit of a bad direction for them, and hear me out before you go harping me about what I just said. The blog ends with, quote, "When someone bothers you on, say, a platform like Facebook and you can find the need to ban them, the Facebook response after you ban is sorry you had this experience, and then that person was removed from being able to post on your page. Steam's stance is what just happened to us. By removing us, they have taken the stance that users have the right to harass me, tell me I should kill myself, and assault my family. If I try to defend myself against said actions, then I lose my family's income. If it wasn't for 2 years of experience of dealing with Steam on a regular basis, the disgusting stance would seem shocking to me. The only thing that prevented me from seeking legal counsel for a long list of breach of contract, interference with businesses, and antitrust issues was the fear of losing my family's income. Since that has been taken away, I am seeking legal representation. This case will benefit from a long list of organized documentation of events that have happened over the past 2 years, including dates, screenshots, emails, and more on over 100 infractions in need of litigation. Legal counsel interested in our case can contact us at support@digitalhomicide.ninja. Now, remember when I said to hear me out before you go on to panic about me saying that perhaps they're not saying the entire truth here? Well, Tech Raptor discovered a few interesting pointers, and seriously, they're doing a very good job of calling Digital Homicide's bluff here. Remember that screenshot of the Brandito comment saying that they wanted to murder every single person responsible for the game? It doesn't show anywhere in the official court documents that Digital Homicide submitted. None of these actually appear in any page of the official court documents that if you watch my last special report, you will see that in the description below this video. I will post it again. That way you have no question that the Brandino comment never appears in any of the court documents. And if you look down below at just Shadowhunter response, they seem to be trying to calm the whole thing down. And by the way, Sterling and Steam users, according to TechRaptor again, are standing by their original statements that Digital Homicide had flipped assets directly from the Unity 3D store, particularly in their title The Slaughtering Grounds. And in case you are not aware of this point, users on Reddit have also accused Digital Homicide of doxing Sterling, who has motioned to dismiss the lawsuit against him. And apparently some developers have taken a bit of sides to this, with Rami Ismail on his Twitter account saying, quote, "The weird thing is Digital Homicide is pointing out correctly that Steam's moderation systems could use work, but in the worst possible way, as developers were basically required to engage in an uncontrollable environment that could be incredibly hostile, toxic, and aggressive." And he continuing on to saying that I'm not apologizing for having a discussion about something as important as dev harassment because one dev is being ridiculous. I'm pretty sure a subpoena for users' real information will force Steam to address something, but no matter how this resolves, it's bad. So before I go into that whole thing about his comments on Twitter, let's go to the Digital Homicide thing in of itself. Here's the problem. No one is debating the whole thing with vitriolic comments being out of the norm and shouldn't be allowed. No one is debating that. I'm not sure if there's any person out there who is on the side of sanity that is actually going around saying that you should be vitriolic against anybody involved in this. And hopefully people are smarter than that in not engaging in that sort of behavior, or not contributing to that sort of behavior, or not responding to people that engage in that sort of behavior. That just entices them to go even more so, and it gives them every sort of ammunition, people like Digital Homicide, every sort of ammunition in order to use it against people. But here is the peculiar thing about this, is that one, it was discovered that these screenshots that Digital Homicide posted onto their blog was not present in the court documents, which shows that they might be a bit deceptive in what they're actually trying to do in order to get sympathy for their side, and not only that, to try to equate vitriolic comments to those that simply try to call them out on what they were doing in their games with the asset flipping and the shovelware that they were putting on the Steam store. Steam has every right in order to remove those games. They are involved in a lawsuit, or at least the Steam users are. Steam has every right to protect the consumer, and this is what they're doing here. They should have done this a while ago. And for Digital Homicide to come in and saying, hey, you had no right to do that, is frivolous at best. And Digital Homicide trying this approach saying just because one person or a couple people were involved in using vitriolic comments or doing this sort of vitriolic means in order to get their point across meant that every single person who posted a review or comment about the game were doing the exact same type of behavior. This whole putting people into a box and saying that one person means everybody is the sort of tactic that is going to get you laughed right out of the court system. Hopefully, we've seen sometimes that it can sometimes work in their favor. But most times, I do think that they will see right past it. Because, quite frankly, this is coming in as new evidence, basically. This is coming in as things that have not been seen before, at least when it comes to the unsealing, the uncovering of the court documents that have been presented by Digital Homicide to whatever court it is. I don't know where this is being tried at, but guilty by association is probably not going to work in this case, because not everybody is being involved in this sort of behavior, and from the screenshot that they themselves supplied, it does seem as though this was the exception, not the rule here. Somebody was actually trying to calm him down. Somebody was actually trying to calm the vitrolic behavior down. A few people were actually. So to say that everybody, the whole 100 people that you're saying that engaged in critical behavior were also engaging in vitrolic behavior, you need to prove that every single one of those at some point in time engaged in the same sort of behavior. And even then, not trying to condone it, but you have to think that how many people could say I could kill somebody or I could murder somebody and not actually be truthful and not just saying I'm going to do it. There's a thing called figure of speech, and how can you prove that that is actually a threat against your life or against anybody? How can you actually prove that they are willing to go through with what they say that they want to do? Like in the movie 12 Angry Men, when that one juror says that not only did the witness might not have heard right when he said that the boy was saying I'll kill you to his father, but then also saying that many times those kind of threats are not sincere, that they are not actually going to go through with doing what they say they would do. And that is a movie from 1957, and I remember seeing that. Both versions I remember seeing, actually. Now, does that mean that you should say that in a public forum? Obviously not. That should not be something that is allowed, but that is not particularly something that the court system is going to take completely seriously, and I'm sorry, but that is just the truth of the matter. It's not going to be something that you can actually go to the court and say, hey, look, this was a threat, this was a threat. You hear that kind of stuff all the time. That doesn't mean that they're going to see that your way. They might, but it's not probable that they're going to see it your way. Now, does that mean that the Steam moderation system has to be fixed? Absolutely. That says that the Steam forum system needs to have some overhaul. But here's the problem. Digital Homicide is using that as an excuse to get sympathy for what they're actually doing, which was to censor people's opinions about their games, to censor those types of opinions. Not just those things that are vitrolic, but those things that are critical, just plain critical, without any sort of vitrolic opinions or any sort of vitrolic comments anywhere even close to it. And to say that critical comments are vitrolic in nature is just absurd. You cannot say that. I could say your game sucks, and you know what? That's not vitrolic. I use a strong word there, but it's not vitrolic. Say your game is not good. That is not vitrolic. But in the minds of Digital Homicide, they are trying to get you to think that that sort of thing is as vitrolic as somebody going and saying, I'm going to kill you over the game. And they are being purposely deceptive in order to gain sympathy, because they know that not a lot of people are going to believe them. Not a lot of people, if someone were stupid enough in order to buy into it, will believe what they're saying here, because the proof is right there in the game. You really don't have to go any further than to look at what was there in the slaughtering grounds. There were assets in the game that were not even cropped right. It was just a big mismatch of various things that really didn't make sense to be in the game in the first place. A game like that didn't seem to have anything that belonged in it. And to be quite honest, they changed their name several times. They have used the name Imminent Uprising, Digital Homicide Studios, Every Click Counts Games, MicroStrategic Game Designs, and Game Portal Publishing, just to name a few. And they have went, according to Jim Sterling, deleting negative feedback on the game and banning users who dare to criticize their games. So yeah, they got a lot to answer for, and their only way to answer it is by posting this blog saying, oh, one or two people decided to go and post death threats on our forums or post vitrolic comments on our forums. Not really saying that you can actually trust that they are people who are not in your company to begin with. There is also that possibility that you're posting those yourselves. And this goes more to the point of what Rami Ismail actually said on on his Twitter feed, that I can see where he is coming from, that Steam might want to have more of a curation and more of a moderation to some of their forums, but that does not mean that this is the case here. That does not mean that Digital Homicide is correct. Does that mean that he thinks that any sort of criticism is equating to vitriolic comments? That's the big problem, is that right in the moment, it is way too easy for the developer to look at a critical review and say, hey, they're vitriolic, and here's the reason why, and point to some random forum post saying, hey, I hope you die of cancer or something like that. And then how are the people who are posting legitimate constructive criticism or criticism about the game in of itself are able to defend themselves when that's the only thing that a developer actually shows in playing to the social sensitivities of the reader or to the player? And when you're trying to actually say that a normal constructive criticism is vitriol, that is a whole nother matter, and it proves to the point that perhaps you're just trying to censor negative feedback on whatever it is you're trying to push out there, which is what Digital Homicide is obviously trying to do. And it's not like Rami Ismail is any bit perfect in his regard either. I could see where he's coming from, but in this case and in many of the other cases in which it is accused that people are using vitriolic comments to get their point across, it's not actually the point. However, we are also blurring the lines of what is considered constructive criticism and what is considered vitriolic. We are completely blurring the lines, and then it's getting blurrier and blurrier as time goes on. Over the past couple of years, that has been the norm recently, in which people will, in order to get away with their crappy games being put on Steam, or to get away with whatever behavior them themselves are engaging in, will look at the one or two comments that are vitriolic and apply that to how everybody is acting when they are talking about them or their product. And because those trolls or those vitriolic comments are heading into the social insensitivities, people are going to look at that right away and just say, hey, what are you doing pouncing on the person just because they are of a different gender or a different race or a different religion or what have you, instead of looking beyond the pale, beyond the mask, and saying, hey, this is just one person out of a million people who actually have legitimate criticisms about your product. Why is one person equal to everybody? Even if we do not condone that person's actions, that does not mean that everybody is conducting themselves in that exact same regard. I think in that case, we have to be very careful anymore about what exactly we are considering when we look at somebody like what Digital Homicide is trying to do here, and make sure we get all the facts before we go and blindly say that somebody is being hostile toward Digital Homicide here, or any other developer that engages in stuff like this. I mean, even NeoGAF isn't buying it, and if NeoGAF, people who will buy into anything that plays to social sensitivities, and usually will take the side of those that are playing to the social sensitivities of the unsuspecting people, if even they are not buying Digital Homicide's BS, then they really got a huge problem, especially when you consider how they acted on the Jimquisition one day. 2 hours of that, you should be hearing that is a laugh in and of itself. And I did make the mistake last episode of the special report by saying that the subpoena was granted by the judge. I misread that. Obviously, they have not been granted that subpoena quite yet. It is still in the response phase, if you call it that Valve has responded to it. I have a feeling they will. But if they grant them this and that, then holy hell, the judge is an idiot. And I don't think for a second that Digital Homicide is going to get what they want at all. This is a guy that was trying to con people into buying their crappy products, and when they got called out on it, and when the Steam refunds began to pop up that gave those that were conned into these products a way to get their money back, instead of Digital Homicide coming clean and saying that they've been scammed on this whole time, they decided to sue everybody who called them out on it. I'm guessing 100 Steam users might not be enough for them. The next thing we know, they'll probably sue any YouTuber that dares to call them out on it as well. Holy hell, I'm in trouble, am I? I don't really care. Come after me, bro. The fact of the matter is, you are childish con artist, Digihom, and no one is buying your that or your continued attempt to sue anybody into submission. Let's just hope that the judge sees it the way that anybody else should see it. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Special Report. Thanks again for watching and listening to me ramble on. If you like it, go hit that like button. That helps me out a whole hell of a lot. Please comment down below about what you thought about today's topic. And obviously, if you want to see more geek gaming culture, hit that subscribe button. I post content as much as I possibly can. Thanks again for watching. My name is JD Shadow, and of course, that just happened.